G'day legends, I hope that you're having a fantastic day, and I just wanted to have a sit down chat with you guys about what I think about this war. Now, for those of you who have followed me, I came to Israel only a few days after October the 7th with no real idea of what was happening or where my opinion would sit. And to be fair, now 9-10 months on, maybe more questions are asked than ever in this ideologically religious, long historical conflict that is occurring, and there's no simple way out of it, and there's no simple way to win. And that I will often say Israel will have a tactical victory, but I think within the first few weeks they had a strategic defeat. Israel is not going anywhere. The countries around Israel are not going anywhere. Regardless of how groups and nations may feel about Israel, they're not going anywhere. And now that we're almost 10 months in, with tens of thousands killed in Gaza, a lot of them civilians, over 300 IDF soldiers killed in Gaza, and no real end to that as we see. There's talk of ceasefire, but any ceasefire like this is just a matter of time until we have real fire again. Now, I'm going to be looking at some notes on my phone. And why do I say tactical victory, strategic defeat? The military might of Israel, they are the regional power here, with allies that are significantly more powerful than its neighbours. Militarily, boots on the ground, tanks and planes and all of this, the tactical element. There's no real competition, although a hybrid asymmetrical guerrilla force is almost impossible sometimes to actually defeat. Like the Taliban would say, you have the watches, but we have the time. And being passionate about your country, being patriotic, is always a step below fundamental ideology and then defending or attacking on religious basis. Have a look at where these wars have been fought in and around this area of the world. But on the strategic element, this has exacerbated and sped up so quickly the changing world that we are moving into at light speed. It sped up with Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and then this just absolutely took off. And that is the division between the West and the rest of the world. Now, some of this is pushed by elements of intelligence groups, and some of it there is real basis on too. When people talk about the West has lost its way, they've lost some of their values of which the society was based on. They've lost, I'm not religious, but they've lost any element of those somewhat religious fundamental values that the whole society was based on. Live as if that was true. They've lost the nuclear family, all of these things. Although it may be presented as worse in intelligence operations around the world and some of the media, it's also not great. And there's this causing divide or increasing divide between the West and the rest of the world. And the West isn't as attractive as it used to be. And that is, of course, to no fault but our own. And also, speaking of this as well, that we have seen, especially with the Russian-Ukrainian war, the reliance on the West, the impact the West can have on economies is still great, but nowhere near as much as we have thought. Just have a look at, say, the sanctions. We've forced countries to then look at third parties and other nations to build alliances and step outside of that global sphere of influence. And this is just a natural peaks and troughs progression of the world. Will we see a collapse of the West? I don't believe. But will we see an absolute increase in the rest of the world? Absolutely we will. And this century may belong to the global south, and many are predicting that, with probably China at the helm. And as well, this is the world changing as we know, and most of this is not caused by outside factors, although people will try and blame outside factors. It's blamed by internal factors. This was what we saw, and this is a good area to speak about it because this is one of the most famous areas of espionage in the world, right in this building. It's blamed externally, but it's presenting internal maybe truths, and all propaganda is a lie but based on a truth, to pick at that and make it something that has grounded in truth. That's how good propaganda then works, is presenting that truth but in the way you want it to then be seen. And we see that happening then all around the world, especially with fast media, with influencers, with the way things can be twisted and put together, and the way that things are also then sold. But there's no doubt in my mind that the West is losing this hybrid asymmetrical campaign. And if we have a look at spying and espionage, the best leaks that we have is when the Soviet Union collapsed and there was a number of defectors bring a lot of information out of the GRU as well as the SVR and FSB out of the Soviet Union and Russia to the helm and show what was going on. And the most successful operations that were claimed by the GRU and FSB, the human intelligence of this, yes, they had some influence, but if you look at the most successful ones, they were when their mistake was already being made and it already existed, and merely they push along on the child on the bicycle to push in the right direction or present that information. It wasn't when they fully developed something and then made that into something. It was already present, and we just maybe brought some light to this. And that is what we're seeing, and I believe this war right here, it's not Israel v Hamas, it's not Israel v Hezbollah. There's other countries absolutely watching this, and I don't believe that China and Russia have any real care about Hezbollah or Hamas. But what it does is it divides populations in the West, and it divides nations away from the West as well, pointing at the hypocrisy between what is being said about a bombing in the south here, in the north here, compared to a bombing in Iraq by America, or compared to a bombing in Ukraine. Or all of these are examples. And again, is there an element of truth in this? Yes. An apple and an orange, if you close your eyes, feel very similar. And that's what I say when people say, well, you're comparing apples and oranges. Well, in the dark, you can barely then tell them apart. Maybe there's a slight scent difference, but they will still be compared. So I doubt that there will be any real end to this, but I think this is the beginning of a major change that we'll see over, maybe it was going to be the next century, and because of this, it's now going to be a decade. How will it look? I don't know. Militarily, tactically, the West is incredibly powerful compared to the rest of the world. But I think that strategic element, the reach into the third world, the pillaging of assets there and people there over centuries, is giving other nations a leg up to have more influence in those areas. And a lot of this is fueled by a Western superiority complex. I can 100% see why other nations who have had no improvement for decades and decades through Western involvement are looking then elsewhere. And I can't blame that at all. And it's easy for you and I to sit back in our comfortable homes in a safe country, in a rich country, and point fingers. But we are not then in that situation. So I think this is just showing us where the world may sit in decades to come. Will we see massive border shift? No. Will we see relationships strained and changed between states? Absolutely. And the global influence and the unipolar world that we currently live in is quickly getting leveled out. And how will this look going into the future when so much is based on being that massive economic and military nuclear force as other powers then do this or potentially even do that in time? I guess we will see. But it's not only that other countries are having success, so we're also allowing the success through our own failures. And by pointing fingers and going, don't do that, when we've done the same ourselves, I think people are waking up to then some of this as well. And it may be apples and oranges, but again, both will fill your stomach. Legends, I hope that you're having a fantastic day. Stick with me as we go into what I think will be one of the craziest eras in world history. We have the ability to end the world at any given point. Many countries have this. It's in no one's interest to do this, but it still exists. And more countries than ever are getting more powerful, and the military inequality that used to exist is getting closed very, very quickly. So look after yourselves and look after your family, and no matter what happens, you and I will be here, and I hope to God that you and I, no matter where we are from, don't fight with weapons in hand. And if we do, and you hit me with a drone, don't make a meme out of me. Thank you. Bye-bye.